Donald Trump just had a late night meltdown of epic proportions. He gave what may have been one of his worst speeches yet. Now, earlier in the day, he spoke at the Villages in Florida to a group of senior citizens at a small high school. And then in the evening, he spoke at a place called the Forum Club, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan organization. Clearly, Donald Trump injected not only partisanship, but deranged behavior befitting of a straitjacket that needs to be put on him immediately. I want to show you this meltdown that he had during, again, what may be one of his worst speeches yet, and that's saying a lot. So Donald Trump starts by bragging about how the United States Navy has essentially now become pirates, and that we use the Navy to just take over the ships of Iranians and others and take over cargo ships and steal all of the produce and steal all of the stuff that's on the ships. Here, play this clip.
And there was no response. Turn your ship around. Evacuate your engine room immediately. And you see all these guys running out of there. Now, they're 5 miles away, and one shot into the engine room blew up the engine room. The ship stopped. They used tugboats, and then we landed on top of it. On top of everything else, we then land on top of it, and we took over the ship. We took over the cargo, took over the oil. It's a very profitable business. Who would have thought we were doing that? We're like pirates. We're sort of like pirates. But we're not playing games because, you know, for 47 years, Iran has been pushing everybody around.
Here is the scene. Friday night, May 1st, 2026. The Kravis Center for the Performing Arts in West Palm Beach, Florida, one of the finest concert halls in the state, a venue that has hosted the symphony and the ballet and some of the most accomplished performers in the world. The Forum Club of the Palm Beaches, a 50-year-old nonpartisan civic organization that has welcomed speakers from both sides of the American political divide, Chuck Schumer and Marco Rubio, Nancy Pelosi and Clarence Thomas, is holding its anniversary gala. And the keynote speaker is the President of the United States. Over the next hour and a half, the assembled guests, business leaders, civic officials, longtime Palm Beach community members will witness something that has become, in this second term, disturbingly routine. A stream of consciousness ramble through grievances, both personal and geopolitical, through historical fantasies and military boasts, through mockery of foreign heads of state and declarations of legal supremacy over the United States Congress. They will hear the President of the United States describe his own Navy as pirates. They will hear him casually propose invading Cuba on the way back from Iran.
Then Donald Trump talks about how he wasn't even familiar with how the PGA Tour was going at his Doral Miami Golf Club because the Iranians keep on calling him. And he goes, I just can't even focus because the Iranians just keep on calling me and they want to negotiate. And I keep saying, guys, I don't want to negotiate with you. I mean, he's making all of this up. And also the PGA event at his Doral Golf Club is being attended by like no one. It is the worst attended PGA tournament in the entire history of the PGA. I did a whole video on that. I'll do another one in the morning, but just play this clip where he makes up that he's just so busy with Iranians calling him all the time. Nobody is calling him. Here, play this clip.
So you'll be all very happy. And, you know, it's right now I own Doral, and right now we have a tournament. I'm so busy. And we have the big Cadillac Championship going on, all the great players, the PGA Tour. And they're there. And yesterday somebody came up, said, sir, the tournament is great. I said, what tournament are you talking about? I'm so busy with the Iranians calling, trying to make a good deal, and we're not going to let that happen. But they've got to make a bad deal. But if they make a deal at all, because frankly, maybe we're better off not making a deal at all. Do you want to know the truth? Because we can't let this thing go on. Going on too long.
Then Donald Trump talks about Gettysburg, and Trump's view of the Civil War is that Robert E. Lee was this heroic character. And Robert E. Lee said, never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight up the hill, me boys. This is, again, just to be clear, Robert E. Lee never said, never fight uphill, me boys. This is a made up thing that never happened. But also Donald Trump somehow situates Robert E. Lee as the good guy and the hero in his story. But I guess that's befitting of Donald Trump. Here, play this clip.
They heard they were going up a hill, Harvey, just going up a hill. Robert E. Lee heard that. Stonewall Jackson was killed as great general, and So he didn't have him. He had another general, and they were going up, and he sent 5 messengers on 5 horses, hoping that one would get through because they were all being shot. It was a bloodbath, and it was never fight uphill, me boys, never fight uphill. He was fought uphill, and they just got wiped out. But that whole, to me, the Robert E. Lee era with Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln. I mean, to me, that is such an amazing, you can learn so much from it, but it was such an amazing time.
They will hear him imitate the voice of the first female president of Mexico. They will hear him deliver his most recent theories on the Civil War and Robert E. Lee. They will hear him brag about his ballrooms. And through it all, the man who is supposed to be managing an active war in the Middle East, navigating the most consequential nuclear standoff since the Cold War, and responding to the highest approval rating collapse of his presidency, that man will tell these nonpartisan guests, with no apparent sense of irony, that he is too busy taking calls from Iranians to watch his own golf tournament on television. Welcome to USA Press. This is the speech that the whole country needs to hear about, and we are going to give it to you in full. Let us start where Trump started, because the first thing he wanted these guests to know was that the Cadillac Championship at his Doral Golf Club was going very well, thank you very much, and that the only reason he couldn't watch it was that the Iranians keep calling. He stood at the podium at the Kravis Center and told the crowd that someone came up to him and said the tournament was great, and that he said, in the precise framing he always uses to make himself the protagonist of every anecdote, "What tournament are you talking about? I'm so busy with the Iranians calling, trying to make a good deal." He then pivoted immediately to say that Iran needs to make a deal, but that, frankly, maybe we're better off not making a deal at all. He said this at a nonpartisan civic dinner within hours of the 60-day War Powers Act deadline passing without congressional authorization to a room full of people whose retirement accounts and businesses have been suffering under oil prices that have now surpassed $112 a barrel because of the war his administration launched on February 28th without consulting Congress and without a clear objective that the American public has been able to discern. But the Cadillac Championship at Doral, the $20 million PGA event that drew 5 absent top 15 players and a 22-foot golden statue of the president, that's going great. Before we go further into the speech, we need you to understand the extraordinary context of this single Friday. Because May 1st, 2026 was not just the night of the Forum Club dinner. It was the day that the 60-day deadline under the War Powers Resolution of 1973 arrived. The law passed over Richard Nixon's veto that requires a president to seek congressional authorization for military conflict within 60 days of notifying Congress that hostilities have begun. The Trump administration notified Congress on March 2nd. 60 days later is May 1st. Iran submitted a new peace proposal to the United States on that exact day. Trump rejected it. And before he left the White House for Florida, Trump told reporters standing on the South Lawn that the War Powers Act is unconstitutional. Not that he disagrees with it. Not that he plans to work with Congress on an authorization. He called the law itself unconstitutional. A law passed by Congress over a presidential veto in 1973 that has been upheld in the courts that every president has at least nominally acknowledged even while pushing against its boundaries. Trump declared it simply unconstitutional and left for Florida to talk about his golf tournament. His approval rating, according to the latest data, has sunk to the lowest point of his current term. Public support for the Iran war is at negative 15 points. And the President of the United States told a room full of Palm Beach society that he can't watch television because the Iranians won't stop calling. Now let us get to the pirates. Because this section of the Trump Forum Club address deserves to be played on a loop in every law school in the country as a case study in what happens when a commander-in-chief has no one around him willing to say, "Sir, you should not say that out loud." Trump was describing a recent naval action in which the United States Navy fired on and seized an Iranian cargo ship. Under international maritime law, seizing the vessel of another nation on the high seas without that nation's consent is a legally complicated proposition at best, an act of piracy at worst. Trump described what happened with the enthusiasm of a man narrating his favorite movie. He said the Navy stopped the ship, brought in tugboats, boarded it, and, in his words, took over the cargo, took over the oil. He then grinned and told the crowd, "We're sort of like pirates." He said it twice because, in case anyone missed it the first time, the President of the United States wanted to be sure they understood that his Navy was operating in a manner that he himself compared to piracy. American sailors, operating under the orders of their Commander-in-Chief, conducting actions that the Commander-in-Chief publicly describes as piracy. International lawyers, diplomats, and America's allies are left to explain to the world what the United States government actually stands for when its own president describes its military conduct in those terms. But the Pirates section was merely the warm-up act for what is, without any competition, the most alarming foreign policy statement delivered from any American podium in recent memory. Trump was discussing Cuba, a country he has been sanctioning, threatening, and publicly fantasizing about taking over for months, and he decided to explain to a nonpartisan dinner audience at a performing arts center in West Palm Beach exactly how the Cuba operation would work militarily.
Then Donald Trump continued to talk about Iran. I mean, this is some deranged stuff, right? I mean, we're all watching what I'm watching. Right? Then Donald Trump talks about more about Iran. And he's like, when you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it's so curvaceous. You see the curves on it? What in the world is going on here? He's doing the shape that he drew for Epstein's 50th birthday card. Play this clip.
Of what's happening in the world. And when you look at the Hormuz Strait and you see all of those ships, all of those people and ships that they want to get out or they want to get in, they're all over the place. They're like little ants, right? They look like a little anthill, and hundreds and hundreds of ships. And we have a navy that is unbelievable. We put up, it's a blockade. It's a blockade. And you saw the other day where a massive tanker, this was bigger than 2 million barrels, a massive tanker was trying to run it. And the young captain of the ship from Annapolis, these guys are like central casting. You could put him in. I'd say something about Tom Cruise. I was going to say better looking than Tom Cruise and taller, but I'm not going to do that because he's a friend of mine. I can't do that.
And then Donald Trump's like, when we bring our aircraft carriers back from Iran, like the USS Lincoln, then we're going to take over Cuba. Cuba's next. We're taking it over. Donald Trump just casually talking about conquering Cuba. Here, play this clip.
An architect who's really talented. He's done a lot of work for him. He's got a flair, a beautiful Hispanic flair in particular. And he comes from originally a place called Cuba, which we will be taking over almost immediately. No, Cuba's got problems. We'll finish one first. I like to finish a job. On the way back from Iran, we'll have one of our big, maybe the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, the biggest in the world. We'll have that come in, stop about 100 yards offshore, and they'll say, "Thank you very much, we give up."
Then Donald Trump talks about Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, and he says that she's beautiful, she's fine. He said she's beautiful, she's fine, and she's got this beautiful voice, he says, and she goes, "Mr. President, I mean, this is some really like deranged straitjacket stuff. I'm not exaggerating what he says here. This is what his view of the president of Mexico is. Here, play this clip.
And now it's the Gulf of America. And the president of Mexico called me. He's not too fond of me anymore, but when she heard about it, it was put in some paper. Somebody leaked it someplace always. You always have leaks. When you're in my world, leaks are part of life. And it was leaked that I was going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And she's a beautiful woman, a very nice, I never like to talk about beauty because it's usually the end of a political career. If you say somebody's a beautiful woman, they say, what a terrible, terrible thing. Everybody hates it except the woman that you're talking about. They love it. So I won't say she's a beautiful woman, but she's a fine woman. And she is. And she's got this incredible, beautiful voice, elegant voice. She was a ballet dancer. She's got this beautiful voice. And she goes, President, no, President, tell me, you're only kidding. You're not going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. No, please. Anyway, so they don't love me too much in Mexico right now, That's why guys like me are in a lot of danger, consequential people get in a lot of danger. You know what I'm talking about?
He said, and we want you to hear this clearly. We'll finish one first. I like to finish a job. On the way back from what we'll do, on the way back from Iran, we'll have one of our big, maybe the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, the biggest in the world. We'll have that come in, stop about 100 yards offshore, and they'll say, "Thank you very much, we give up." He said this while smirking. The audience laughed. And in Havana, and in every foreign ministry in every country watching American foreign policy with growing alarm, the reaction was not laughter. It was the sound of diplomatic analysts reaching for their phones to explain to their governments that the President of the United States had just publicly announced a planned military action against a Caribbean nation as a throwaway line in an after-dinner speech. Earlier that same day, Trump had signed an executive order expanding sanctions on Cuba, targeting its energy, defense, metals, and financial sectors. Cuba's foreign minister denounced the sanctions as collective punishment. The United Nations has warned of a humanitarian crisis on the island as a result of ongoing American economic pressure. And the President of the United States told Palm Beach that on the way back from Iran, the aircraft carrier can just swing by. We have to pause here and note something that should alarm every American, regardless of party. The Forum Club of the Palm Beaches has been a nonpartisan institution for 50 years. It has given a platform to some of the most consequential figures in American public life, Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, because it believes in civic discourse, in the exchange of ideas, in the kind of forum where different points of view can be heard and debated with dignity. The host who invited Trump to speak is his friend Harvey, who appeared throughout the speech as the smiling facilitator of a presentation that had nothing to do with civic discourse and everything to do with one man's ego, his grievances, his fantasies, and his digressions. When you invite a former or sitting president to speak at a nonpartisan dinner and what you get is piracy jokes and Cuba invasion plans and Civil War revisionism and imitations of the Mexican president's voice, the nonpartisan label does not protect the institution from the damage. It just makes the damage more visible. If you are watching USA Press and this is giving you what you have been looking for, analysis that takes every word seriously and doesn't let any of it pass by unchallenged, please hit subscribe right now and ring that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. The work we do here is for you, and the more people who see it, the more impact it has. Hit like and keep watching because we have a great deal more to get to. Let us talk about Robert E. Lee. Because in a speech that contained multitudes of alarming material, Trump's extended meditation on the Civil War stands out as a case study in the particular brand of historical revisionism that this administration has deployed as a political project. Trump told the Forum Club audience that Robert E. Lee was a brilliant general, a characterization that historians do not dispute, but then went significantly further, expressing open admiration for Lee as a man and a leader in terms that allied the central fact of Lee's military career. He took up arms against the United States of America in defense of the institution of human enslavement. Trump then suggested, as he has before, that the Civil War could have been settled in a day if someone had just gotten the two sides in a room and worked it out. He has made this claim before. It never gets less astonishing. The Civil War was not a business dispute. It was not a misunderstanding. It was not a zoning variance that needed a good negotiator. It was a conflict that killed more than 600,000 Americans, that was fought over whether human beings could be legally owned as property, and that ended with the abolition of slavery, the passage of the 13th Amendment, and the beginning of a century-long struggle for civil rights, whose consequences are still being lived every single day in this country. The idea that it could have been settled in one day, presumably on terms favorable to the Confederacy, since the goal of a negotiated settlement would have been to prevent the war, not to guarantee the abolition of slavery, is not just historically illiterate. It is a political statement. It tells you what this administration believes about which side of that war it most admires.
Then he says Mar-a-Lago is the hottest club around. Object, he goes, it's the hottest club, and we bring hundreds, if not thousands of travelers, and hundreds of jobs are created in Mar-a-Lago. It's the hottest thing there is. Here, play this clip.
But not only have we lovingly restored they call it the crown jewel of Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago, but we turned it into what everybody acknowledges. It's the hottest club anywhere in the world. I mean, I hate to say it about my club, but it is truly everybody that's been there. It's the hottest club anywhere in the world. And very importantly, it creates hundreds of jobs and brings thousands of travelers here each year. And then we have all the weddings and all the conventions and the events that we have there are spectacular. And they say it's raised more money as a ballroom. It's raised more money than any other ballroom anywhere in the world for charity. We raise tremendous money for charity.
Then he continues to talk about the Civil War, but he again has a very deranged view of what happened. And so again, Robert E. Lee's like his hero in the story. The Confederates are his hero in the story. And he's like, I could have settled the Civil War in one day. I would have settled the thing. Here, play this clip.
Actually, a lot of you, but it's not that much. And so we made it 1776. It's just special. I mean, the whole place, it's a special country. But when you look at some of the movies and documentaries about the founding of our country and all of the great people, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, Lincoln later, but Thomas Jefferson, all of the original founders, and some of the ones that are least known are actually the most important and the most interesting, actually. But when you look at all, then you have the Civil War. The Civil War was brutal. It was a brutal. I always said, why couldn't that have been settled? And maybe it could have been, but it was a brutal war. It was supposed to last one day, and because Robert E. Lee was an amazing general, you know, I deal with generals a lot. And I ask, who was the best general? A lot of them say Robert E. Lee, because he took something that was supposed to end in one day and it went 4 years. And with the exception of Gettysburg, that was not good. That was not a good one. It was not a good day for him, but that didn't happen. He would have actually won. They were going for New York, and they heard they were going up a hill, Harvey, just going up a hill. Robert E. Lee heard that. Stonewall Jackson was killed as great general. And
it's very telling, though, when you think about what he just said there, right? He said that basically Robert E. Lee was so courageous that he dragged out the Civil War for 4 years when it could have been settled in a day. It gives you a window into Donald Trump's mind, though, right? Does Donald Trump think that this is what we should be doing with Iran, just extending it out for 4 years? And I don't know. Then Donald Trump says that when the Queen walked into the Oval Office, she was like, whoa, what a great Oval Office. Here, play this clip.
It's nice to be given good credit when you do things that are good. And I guess sometimes I'll say they don't give me enough credit, and then I'll be in the Oval Office, this beautiful, most powerful, most incredible office in the world. People walk in and they say, wow, the biggest people in the world. Even the Queen the other day, she walked in with King Charles, Camilla. She said, wow, this is the Oval Office. I said, when the Queen of England says that, that's very cool. But people do, the biggest business people, the biggest politicians. And, you know, it's an amazing place, and we keep it well. We fix it. One of the nice parts about being in real estate, I give it the Mar-a-Lago treatment. We fix Mar-a-Lago. We make it better than it's ever been. It's better than it was the day it was built.
Now for Claudia Sheinbaum. The president of Mexico is, by any serious measure, one of the most impressive heads of government operating in the world right now. She is a climate scientist with a doctorate from UC Berkeley. She was the chief architect of Mexico City's Climate Action Plan. She has managed a relationship with Donald Trump, one of the most volatile and transactional foreign policy partners in modern American history, with a composure and strategic intelligence that has earned her approval ratings consistently around 70% in Mexico, an extraordinary number for any Democratic leader. And Donald Trump, at the Forum Club dinner on Friday night, did what he has done multiple times before in public settings. He imitated her voice. He told the audience about a phone call during which Sheinbaum asked him not to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, a unilateral declaration that applies only in American territory and that the international community, Mexico and Cuba, have all rejected. Trump described her asking him, with what he called her beautiful voice, not to go through with the name change, and then he slipped into his impression, dropping into a mock pleading high-pitched register saying, President, tell me you're only joking." The room laughed. Trump had used this exact impression of Sheinbaum before, in March, at the Shield of the Americas summit he held at his Doral Club. It generated criticism then. He did it again Friday night, adding that he's not sure she likes him as much as she used to because of the Gulf of Mexico dispute. That is the tone in which the President of the United States discusses the female leader of America's second-largest trading partner. He imitates her voice at dinner parties. He talks about whether she likes him, and the room laughs. Here is what the laughter obscures. While Trump was delivering this impression to applause at the Kravis Center, the United States Department of Justice had just indicted the sitting governor of Sinaloa, Mexico, Rubén Rocha Moya, and 9 other Mexican officials on federal charges of involvement with the Sinaloa cartel. President Sheinbaum was facing one of the most consequential decisions of her presidency, whether and how to comply with American extradition requests for officials from her own ruling party, men who are political allies of her predecessor and mentor. The political costs of complying are enormous. The diplomatic costs of refusing could be catastrophic. She is navigating this with the same calm intelligence that has defined her entire relationship with the Trump administration. And the man on the other side of that relationship was at a dinner party doing her voice. Let us spend a moment on the Oval Office section of this speech, because it is one of those Trump moments that is simultaneously grandiose and inadvertently revealing. Trump told the Forum Club guests that when Queen Camilla, he said the Queen of England, not Queen Camilla, visited the Oval Office during the royal state visit, she complimented the renovations. He was clearly proud of this. He described her reaction to the gilded Oval Office with the satisfaction of a man who has finally gotten validation from a source he considers appropriately prestigious. This is the same man who had the West Wing colonnade refloored in black granite, specifically so that King Charles would walk on it and be impressed. This is the man who has installed gold lettering throughout the White House, who has created a presidential walk of fame, who called his own renovation of the East Wing, a renovation designed to build a $400 million ballroom, a great real estate development project. The Queen of England said she liked his floors, and he is still talking about it. There is something in that image. A 79-year-old president of the United States, the most powerful man on the planet, deriving his sense of validation from whether visiting royalty admired his interior decorating. That tells you everything about the emotional architecture of this administration. He also told the audience about Mar-a-Lago, which he called the hottest club in the world. He discussed his obsession with his ballrooms. He mentioned his plans for White House renovation. He talked about himself not wanting a dog, apparently still nursing some grievance about having been publicly noted for being the only modern president without a pet. He mentioned James Comey, apparently unable to let go of that particular grudge even as the man is facing his second federal indictment. The President of the United States, 60 days into a war with Iran, his approval rating at its lowest point, the War Powers Act deadline having just passed, Iran having submitted a new peace proposal that he rejected, 5,000 American troops being withdrawn from Germany, global oil prices at $112 a barrel. He went to a nonpartisan dinner and talked about his ballrooms and his floors and whether Claudia Sheinbaum still likes him and why Robert E. Lee could have avoided the Civil War with a better deal. Now let us talk about Jimmy Kimmel. Because the Kimmel story and the Forum Club speech are not unrelated. They are expressions of the same underlying dynamic, a president who believes that anyone who challenges him, anyone who mocks him, anyone who uses the tools of free expression to hold him accountable, must be punished. And the tools of that punishment, the FCC, the DOJ, the federal licensing apparatus, the bully pulpit of the White House, are being deployed with a consistency and a ferocity that should alarm every American who has ever valued the First Amendment. Here is what happened. On April 24th, Jimmy Kimmel taped a comedy sketch for his late-night show on ABC in which he delivered a mock address at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Looking at Melania Trump, he made a joke about the age gap between the First Lady and her 79-year-old husband, describing her as having a glow like an expectant widow. It is a sharp joke. It is a joke about age and marriage and the specific expression that people across America have noticed on Melania Trump's face in public settings. It is the kind of joke that late-night television has made about powerful people since Johnny Carson was on the air. 3 days after the joke aired, a heavily armed man attempted to enter the venue hosting the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Trump and his allies immediately claimed a direct line between Kimmel's joke and the shooting attempt, a claim with no evidentiary basis and one that multiple legal experts, First Amendment scholars, and common-sense observers have rejected outright. But the machinery moved fast. Melania Trump posted to X, calling Kimmel's comments hateful and violent rhetoric and demanding ABC fire him. Trump posted to Truth Social calling the joke far beyond the pale and a call to violence.
Donald Trump says, the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting was a good thing because now I get my ballroom. And people said, wow, you need your ballroom. So it was a good thing. Again, more red flags here and more questions should be raised about what actually happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner because there are so many red flags, and he's saying it's a good thing. And by the way, regardless of what happened or didn't happen, if they behave like maniacs like this, Trump and his regime about it, you don't get sympathy. You don't get sympathy from us. This is how you're bragging about ballrooms. Here, play this clip.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. No, please. Anyway, so they don't love me too much in Mexico right now, That's why guys like me are in a lot of danger. Consequential people get in a lot of danger. You know what I'm talking about? Saturday night, it was good for one thing. People are loving my ballroom now. That's the only thing. They love my ballroom. They love my ballroom. It's going to be the best in the world, although I like the one at Mar-a-Lago very much too, Mayor.
Then Donald Trump says he never wanted a dog. Play this clip.
And that's good. That usually is very good for votes. I was never as much, they all wanted me to buy a dog when I went to the White House. They said, sir, you'll be the first president in 68 years or something that doesn't have a dog. I said, it's not going to work for me. No, they like pictures of like Biden walking his dog all that, but his dog was a vicious dog, kept biting our Secret Service people. No, we had 28 bite problems, 28. This was a violent dog. That's not a dog I'd want. But for 60 years, I guess, even longer, every president's had a dog because they do it for votes. Some of them do it because they love the dog. Probably most of them do it for votes. And I thought it would look quite fake. Like the fake news, it was quite fake. Can you imagine? Donald Trump has purchased a lovely, lovely little poodle. And he walks him religiously every day in the White House grounds as he's inspecting the ballroom that's going up. They walk deep down into a foundation that's going down to China. There's a lot of stuff going on in that foundation, let me tell you. A friend of mine said, boy, that's the deepest foundation I've ever seen for a ballroom. I said, yeah, a lot of things happening there. But we have several friends of mine that were great with us.
And then he says that more on Iran. He says they call it a military operation because if I say it's a war, then I have to follow the law. But if I just call it an operation, then I don't have to follow the law. Play this clip.
It hit one yesterday, hit one the day before, during what they call a military operation. They don't like the word war. And they call it a military operation because that way you don't have a war, you don't have legal problems.
More on the Gulf of Mexico, which he says, and I always wanted to call it Gulf of America. Play this clip.
In other countries, believe it or not, Mexico, who does not like me after the change of the name to the Gulf of America. The president called me up. This is 6 months ago. We have 92% of the waterfront. They have 8%. And I always wondered, why is it the Gulf of Mexico? For a long time, even looking as a kid, I said, well, Gulf of Mexico, it's such a powerful name. It's such a powerful thing, the Gulf of Mexico, but it should be the Gulf of America. I mean, I'll say it only within the confines of this room because I know that's a lot of fake news back there. Within the confines of this room, Mayor, you're not going to tell anybody, please? I was thinking about seriously calling it the Gulf of Trump, but I really was, but I was told by some very wise people, please don't do this. That's what I don't think would have worked. What do you think?
Then he talks about his weaponized and unlawful prosecution of James Comey. It's like all these crazy people. How is James Comey doing these days? Let's play this clip.
And now I say it's not even close. These politicians are ruthless, vicious. They are liars, unlike our people from our great town council. But these are vicious people. I mean, what I see, Shifty Schiff, all these crazy people that we have to deal with, think of it. Comey, how's he doing?
And I'll just read for you what the Forum Club is supposed to be, just so you can see for yourself. This is from the Forum Club website. As a nonprofit organization, the Forum Club of Palm Beach is Florida's largest nonpartisan political and public affairs organization. Since 1976, when President Jimmy Carter served as its inaugural speaker, the Forum Club has hosted a majority of U.S. Supreme Court justices and a variety of thought leaders whose words and actions affect the world in which we live. Well, I guess if it's affect the world in which we live, Donald Trump does affect the world in which we live. He utterly destroys it. That was the most pathetic speech I think I've ever seen in my whole damn life. Tell me what you think. Now hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers, and thanks for watching.
The FCC, whose Trump-appointed chair Brendan Carr has been weaponizing regulatory power against media companies he dislikes since the first days of this administration, ordered Disney's 8 ABC-owned broadcast stations to file early license renewals by May 28th, years ahead of the scheduled 2028-2031 renewal window. The FCC claimed the license review was related to an ongoing investigation into Disney's diversity programs. Nobody in the industry believed that. The FCC's own lone Democratic commissioner, Ana Gomez, called it out publicly on CNN. The government, she said, has no authority to cancel broadcasters' licenses because of their perceived political views. Bob Corn-Revere, chief counsel of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, called it viewpoint retaliation and said the FCC's timing makes it clear these justifications are a fig leaf. This campaign against a disfavored broadcaster violates the First Amendment, pure and simple. So, indroin non as den stundering sentence. The director of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University said the FCC has no authority to cancel broadcasters' licenses because of their perceived political views. And Jimmy Kimmel? He walked out in front of his studio audience on Monday night and opened with a line that will go down in the history of American comedy. You know how sometimes you wake up in the morning and the First Lady puts out a statement demanding you be fired from your job? The crowd lost it. He then addressed the substance directly, calmly, and without apology. He said his remark was a very light roast joke about the fact that he's almost 80 and she's younger than I am. He said it was not by any stretch of the definition a call to assassination, and they know that. He noted that Trump himself had made light of his own mortality at the state dinner with King Charles, joking about his parents' 63-year marriage and saying to Melania, "That's a record we won't be able to match, darling. I'm sorry." The monologue accumulated more than 4 million views in less than 24 hours. The White House communications director responded by calling for Kimmel to be shunned for not apologizing. Shunned. The word has a medieval quality that seems appropriate for an administration that has been conducting a sustained campaign against free speech, free press, and comedic dissent from the very first days of its return to power. This is not Kimmel's first rodeo. Last September, after Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk was assassinated, Kimmel made remarks on his show about the MAGA reaction to the killing that the administration and its allies used to demand his firing. Station groups Nexstar and Sinclair pulled his show. ABC suspended it indefinitely. The administration cheered. Kimmel came back. He never formally apologized. And here we are again, 7 months later, with the same playbook being run against the same man for the same reason. He refuses to stop. This time, Disney's new CEO Josh D'Amaro, who took over from Bob Iger last month, appears to be taking a different approach. Disney released a statement saying it operates in full compliance with FCC rules and will demonstrate that through the appropriate legal channels, explicitly invoking the First Amendment. The FCC's license challenge is the kind of slow, grinding process that can take years to resolve, and legal experts say Disney has strong First Amendment grounds to fight it. The last time the FCC ordered an early license renewal for a broadcast station under similar circumstances was 1972. Even that case took years. The administration knows this. The point is not to revoke the license immediately. The point is to hang the threat over every broadcaster, every comedian, every journalist in the country, and make them ask themselves, is the joke worth it? Is the story worth it? Is the criticism worth it? Kimmel's answer every single week is yes. And that answer, delivered not from a campaign trail or a congressional floor, but from a late-night comedy desk in front of a studio audience, is one of the most important acts of civic courage being performed in America right now. Let us pull back and look at the full picture of this week, because when you lay everything side by side, you see something that a speech about pirates and a joke about expectant widows can obscure with their absurdity. The Iran war is now 60 days old. The War Powers Act deadline has arrived, and the president has declared the law unconstitutional. His approval rating is at its lowest point. Support for the war is 15 points underwater. Iran submitted a new peace proposal, and Trump rejected it. He is reviewing new military options to potentially relaunch hostilities. 5,000 American troops are being withdrawn from Germany, another weakening of the NATO alliance that King Charles specifically traveled to Washington to defend. Oil prices are at $112 a barrel. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And the President of the United States is telling nonpartisan audiences in Palm Beach that he is a pirate, that Cuba is next, and that Robert E. Lee could have made a deal. The Forum Club of the Palm Beaches has been hosting important conversations for 50 years. It has brought serious people to its stage to discuss the serious challenges facing this country and the world. On May 1, 2026, it hosted a president who used that stage to audition grievances, practice his impressions, and float military invasions as after-dinner entertainment. The host who introduced him called it a privilege. The audience applauded. And somewhere in that applause was the sound of an institution that was built to elevate public discourse being asked to validate its opposite. This is USA Press. We cover what matters every single day with the full depth it deserves. If this report gave you something real, please hit like right now. It takes 1 second and it sends this work to thousands of people who need to hear it. Subscribe to USA Press and share this video everywhere you can. Drop a comment below and tell us what shocked you most, the pirates, the Cuba carrier, or the Civil War negotiation fantasy, because we want to hear from you. The truth doesn't take a day off, and neither do we.